Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a highly engineered, totally hidden world right inside your local hospital. We're talking about the sterile compounding pharmacy. It's an environment so meticulously controlled and so remarkably pristine that it honestly feels a bit like science fiction. But it is very real, and it is working every single day to keep patients safe. Picture this. You're lying in your hospital bed, just feeling the weight of the day. The monitor beside you is humming softly. Your nurse steps in, gives you an update, and says the doctor just ordered a new medication for you. For most of us, that's where our part of the story usually ends, right? We just sit back, we wait, and eventually our treatment arrives. But behind the scenes, that one single order kicks off a fascinating, totally invisible chain of events. So while you're playing the waiting game at your bedside, that electronic prescription is embarking on a pretty wild journey. And no, it doesn't just go to a normal pill shelf, and it definitely doesn't get sent down the street to a local pharmacy. Instead, it travels deep inside the hospital to a highly secure facility known as a sterile compounding pharmacy. Part 1. The invisible chain reaction. Let's trace the actual path of your prescription. We're going to track this step by step, from the doctor's electronic order right through the anteroom, into the buffer room, and finally hitting the primary engineering control. It's basically a descent into increasingly restricted, ultra-pristine zones, until we reach the microscopic level at the very center of the operation.
Which brings us to part 2, gateway to sterile worlds, and crossing that clean room border.
Now, before anyone or anything can cross that border, we have to talk about the rules of the game. This entire hidden facility operates under the rigorous guidelines of something called USP Chapter 797. It's a massive, incredibly strict rulebook designed with one ultimate goal in mind: absolute patient safety. Literally every procedure, every air current, and every piece of clothing in the space is dictated by these rules.
Your prescription's very first stop? The anteroom. Think of it like a strict border checkpoint, a massive shift from your typical bustling hospital hallway. Pharmacists and techs can't just walk in. They have to thoroughly scrub in and suit up completely. We're talking sterile gowns, gloves, masks, shoe covers, the whole shebang. They have to physically prep themselves before they even think about stepping into the cleaner areas.
And it's not just the wardrobe that changes here, it's the actual air. The air in this anteroom gets completely swapped out with fresh, HEPA-filtered, particle-free air about 20 times an hour. Just let that sink in. 20 complete air changes every single hour. The old air is constantly being shoved out and replaced, making this space vastly cleaner than the hallways right outside its doors.
To pull this off, the room has to hit a strict ISO Class 7 standard. By doing this, the anteroom essentially acts like a giant pressure dam from an HVAC perspective. It maintains a slightly higher air pressure than the outside hallway. Why? So that clean air is always rushing forward into the pharmacy, physically pushing any potential contaminants away. It's literally an invisible barrier keeping the bad stuff out.
Next up, Part 3. Inside the clean room, entering the buffer zone.
Once you're properly suited up and step through those doors, the sensory shift is wild. If you were standing in there, it would feel incredibly still. There are no random breezes. If a beam of sunlight shined through, you wouldn't see a single speck of dust dancing in it. It's an eerily perfect environment that takes that ISO Class 7 cleanliness to a whole new level. And the reason it's so pristine comes down to a single number: 30. 30-plus complete air changes per hour are continuously cycling through this space. The HVAC system is basically working in overdrive, constantly refreshing the air to make sure absolutely zero contaminants can settle anywhere. For your standard non-hazardous compounding, this HVAC setup acts as an active invisible shield. HEPA filters rain fresh air down from above, quite literally sweeping any stray particles down and out through low-wall returns. And because the room is kept at positive pressure, air only flows outward into the less clean areas, never inward. It's a masterful, highly engineered physical defense system protecting your meds. Moving on to Part 4, where the magic happens, the sterile core. Right in the absolute center of the buffer room is the star of the show, the primary engineering control, or PEC. This could be a laminar airflow workbench operating at an impossibly strict ISO Class 5 purity level. So here's the deal. Inside this device, your medication or IV is mixed inside a protective bubble of unidirectional laminar airflow. Imagine a perfectly smooth, even curtain of ultra-clean air flowing top to bottom, basically acting as a physical wall pushing invisible threats away before they get anywhere near the medication.
But here's the catch. It's an incredibly delicate balance. That clean air curtain is so steady and precise that human movement is actually its biggest enemy. Seriously, if a technician just waves their hand the wrong way or moves a bit too fast, they can disrupt that uninterrupted curtain and break the entire protective barrier. Every single movement in that core has to be perfectly calculated and smooth. Finally, part 5, from pharmacy to bedside, the final journey. Let's follow this final leg back to you. First, it's compounded in the PEC, then perfectly sealed and labeled. Next, it's moved back out through those pressurized doors of the anteroom. And finally, it's either shot through the hospital's pneumatic tube system or hand-carried straight to the nurse's station, arriving right at your bedside, which, for most of us, is the only piece of this massive puzzle we ever actually see. There's a quote from our source material that I absolutely love because it perfectly captures this whole hidden facility. It says, "The air itself, invisible and silent, is one of the most important medicines in the room." Next time you're watching a nurse hook up an IV or hand you a little cup of pills, it's wild to think about the entire team of professionals and the insanely intricate HVAC systems that worked in perfect harmony to make it safe, sterile, and exactly what you need. It's just incredible to realize how much hidden engineering surrounds our everyday healthcare. The sheer precision required to mix one single medication is unbelievable. It really makes you wonder, what other complex, invisible systems are working silently right now behind the walls, all just to keep us safe? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I hope it opened your eyes to the invisible magic happening right down the hall.